Yeah, at first, I was so happy. And second, I thought like, new year, new boyfriend, thanks God.
No, okay.
That was my, thing. Why did you pick me?
Well, the reason I picked you is because I thought that you're real, confident, bright, and to be honest, you had a really beautiful smile.
Oh, thank you.
And I think you're the type of person that makes conversation more genuine and easygoing.
Aw,
Yeah, that's
you were.
all jokes aside, that's true honesty.
Oh my God, thank you.
What do you think about this place?
I thought like you're gonna propose me. I think I'm gonna marry.
Come on, it's our first date.
No, I'm sorry, it was a better place. But it's so pretty, isn't it?
You wanna walk around?
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
see.
What do you want to do for the second date?
Maybe we could hold hands.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just get to know each other more.
Maybe that's cool. But we can still hold our hands at our first date too.
Is that really?
Yeah. Is it okay with you?
Of course.
Then why not? Do you have any goal that you want to reach in New Year?
This New Year, I would like to go on 4 dates with you. That's my goal.
Well, then you're gonna achieve that goal.
Yeah.
Global heritage will unite. We share brilliant values and honor the world's most cherished legacies to pass our heritage on to future generations. Busan invites you. The 48th session of UNESCO World Heritage Committee. July 2026, Busan, Korea.
In our headlines on this Friday, January 2nd, here in South Korea. President Lee Jae-myung welcomes the new year by praising South Korea's democratic resilience and by pledging to advance national prosperity and regional peace. And starting this coming Sunday, President Lee Jae-myung begins a 4-day state visit in neighboring China, where he's scheduled to sit down with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping next Monday. Meanwhile, the South Korean stock market opens its first day of trade for the year 2026 with a new high, with foreign investors raking in shares in response to record high exports for the month of December last year. President Lee Jae-myung ushered in 2026 with a reception at the Blue House, where he also shared his vision for the country in the new year. Our top office correspondent Song Yujin starts us off.
A country where effort is rewarded, opportunities are open, and prosperity is shared. That's the vision President Lee Jae-myung has for South Korea in the new year.
2026년 병오년 새해에는 회복과 정상화의 토대 위에서 우리 대한민국이 대도약을 향해 힘차게 달려나가는 새로운 한 해가 될 것입니다.
Marking the start of the year, President Lee hosted a New Year's reception at the Blue House on Friday. Around 200 guests attended, including key figures from the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, as well as representatives from business, labor, and religious circles. In his remarks, the president underscored his policy direction for 2026, ensuring that economic growth benefits society as a whole, not just a selective few. He stressed that shared prosperity is not only a matter of fairness, but a driver of sustainable growth.
공동체와 국민 전체의 역량으로 이뤄낸 이 경제 성장의 결실이 중소기업 또 벤처기업까지 흐르고 국민 한 분 한 분이 체감할 수 있는 삶의 변화로 이어져야 합니다.
The message echoed his New Year's address a day earlier, in which Lee pledged stronger support for startups and small businesses, creating an environment where innovation and risk-taking are encouraged and failure is not penalized. The president also called for national unity, urging the country to move beyond deepening division.
갈등을 키우기보다 공존과 화합의 길을 찾고 성장의 속도만큼이나 상생의 책임을 고민할 때 우리 대한민국이 다시 한번 큰 도약을 이뤄낼 수 있을 것으로 확신합니다.
Cabinet ministers and the leadership of the ruling Democratic Party were present at Friday's event. However, the main opposition People Power Party decided not to attend, likely due to ongoing political tensions over the establishment of a special tribunal for insurrection charges and allegations of illegal lobbying involving senior DP politicians. 송유진, Arirang News.
National Security Advisor Wee Sung-lak says the leaders of South Korea and China will sit down for their second summit next Monday in Beijing. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min has the latest.
The South Korean leader will depart for Beijing on Sunday as part of his 4-day state visit to China. On Monday, President Lee Jae-myung will be hosted by Chinese President Xi Jinping for a summit, just 2 months after they met in South Korea's Gyeongju. High on the agenda is restoring the Seoul-Beijing relationship, which had been frosted under the previous Yoon Suk-yeol administration.
Based on deep friendship and robust trust between Korea and China, we will restore the strategic dialogue channel to solidify the political foundation.
The leaders are also expected to focus on economic cooperation, centered on supply chains and digital economy, among others, with a signing event planned for a number of MOUs. North Korea is also on the summit agenda, as Seoul asks for a constructive role by Beijing to revive dialogue with Pyongyang.
People's livelihoods and peace are inseparable. Both South Korea and China share the common goal of peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia.
Eyes are also on China potentially lifting its unofficial ban on Korean cultural content, which was in retaliation for Seoul's decision to deploy the U.S. THAAD missile defense system in 2016. Other issues on the table include the issue of China's unauthorized steel structures in the West Sea. When asked about Taiwan issues, Wee said South Korea respects the One China policy. On Tuesday, a number of meetings with high-level Chinese politicians is scheduled, including Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Zhao Leji, and Premier Li Chang. President Lee will then head to Shanghai, where he will meet Party Secretary of Shanghai, Chen Jining. Also in that city, Lee will visit the Provisional Government Building in Shanghai, a Korean government in exile during Japanese colonial rule. He plans to honor the 150th anniversary of the birth of Korean independence activist Kim Gu, as well as the centennial anniversary of the Shanghai Provisional Government. Business cooperation is also key to Lee's China trip. The president will attend a South Korea-China business forum in Beijing and a venture startup summit in Shanghai. He will also meet Koreans residing in China during his stay. The president's top security advisor called the New Year trip to China unprecedented, in that it completes a South Korea-China reciprocal visit at the top level in just 2 months. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun spoke with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on the phone this past Wednesday to fine-tune details of the upcoming state visit to China by President Lee Jae-myung. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea and China's top diplomats held a phone call for concrete and substantive outcomes ahead of President Lee Jae-myung's state visit to Beijing. Seoul's foreign ministry says Minister Cho Hyun talked on the telephone on the last day of the year with his counterpart Wang Yi, focusing on the top-level trip from January 4th to January 7th. The two ministers reviewed the trajectory of South Korea-China relations over the past year and agreed to maintain close communication to ensure the success of the visit, which will mark the first state-level summit diplomacy of the new year for both countries. Both sides stressed the need to deliver substantive results that can be tangibly felt by the public and consolidate the momentum towards fully restoring Seoul and Beijing's strategic cooperative partnership. Cho and Wang also exchanged views on the situation on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia, agreeing to continue efforts aimed at regional stability and prosperity. This comes amid North Korea's continued missile tests. On Sunday, Pyongyang carried out a launch drill involving long-range strategic cruise missiles over the West Sea, with leader Kim Jong-un observing on site, 4 days after it tested new surface-to-air missiles. North Korea has described the launches as part of efforts to strengthen its nuclear capabilities, rejecting the idea of denuclearization. Against this backdrop, Seoul has repeatedly emphasized the importance of regional coordination, including with Beijing, while encouraging the resumption of dialogue between Pyongyang and Washington. During his 4-day stay, the South Korean leader will hold a summit with President Xi Jinping, where security matters are likely to be raised. On top of that, South Korea's decision to pursue nuclear-powered submarines may be discussed. The two leaders are further expected to address economic relations following years of market uncertainty, following Beijing's unofficial sanctions on South Korean businesses and culture, after Seoul decided to adopt a US missile defense system against North Korea's growing capabilities. Yi and Xi last met in Gyeongju in November when the Chinese leader visited South Korea to attend the APEC leaders meeting. The upcoming talks in Beijing will mark their second summit in just over 2 months. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
In other news, among the changes on the economic front this year is the government's management of strategic planning as well as policy and budget allocation as well as execution. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers this change and more.
South Korea's economic control tower has been completely re-engineered. Effective Friday, the Ministry of Economy and Finance, which had served as the country's super ministry since 2008, has been separated into distinct bodies. This marks the first structural split in 18 years. The newly reinstated Ministry of Economy and Finance, located in the Sejong Central Building, will handle economic policy, taxation, foreign exchange, and state property management. Meanwhile, the functions of budget and national strategy have been transferred to the new Ministry of Planning and Budget, operating directly under the Prime Minister's office. The idea to work together was the reason behind the merger back in 2008, but with the split in authority, the government's now trying to have each agency focus on its goals. This is because when mid to long-term budget planning and immediate budget execution are done by the same agency, the planning could be focused more on immediate measures. While the government restructures the top, it is also widening the safety net at the bottom. The Ministry of Health and Welfare has raised the standard median income for a 4-person household to roughly 6.49 million won, or about $4,600. This represents a 6.51% increase, the sharpest hike on record, aimed at reflecting recent inflation and the rising cost of living. This standard median income, which represents the exact midpoint of all households ranked by earnings, is critical, as it serves as the eligibility benchmark for 80 different government welfare programs. With this adjustment, the threshold for livelihood benefits, which is capped at 32% of the median income, has also been raised. For a 4-person household, the monthly support cutoff has increased from 1.95 million won to nearly 2.08 million won, which is roughly $1,480. In addition, more rules will be in place for the real estate market. To prevent so-called gap investment fraud, authorities will no longer recognize multiple rental deposits as valid debt for welfare eligibility, ensuring support reaches those who truly need it. 김도현, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Bank of Korea Governor Lee Chang-yong expects the economy to expand 1.8% this year. However, in the absence of the IT sector, that outlook drops to 1.4%. In his speech to mark the start of the new year on this Friday, he spoke of a K-shaped economy which splits recovery into two directions, one rising and the other falling. With regard to the South Korean currency, the governor linked the weak won partly to massive overseas investments by Koreans here at home and called for a comprehensive review of capital outflows and their economic implications. The South Korean stock market charged into the new year with record strength as foreign investors raked in shares bolstered by news of record South Korean exports in December last year. Park Jun-han reports.
After a 2-day holiday over the new year, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI broke another record on Friday. The market opened on Friday at just over 4,224 points, up 0.25% from Tuesday's close, and then proceeded to end the day's trading at over 4,309 points, up 95.46 points or 2.27%. The market opened an hour later than usual at 10 a.m. due to the annual opening ceremony attended by financial leaders to celebrate the new year. Despite the weak performance of the United States stock indices on Wednesday, the KOSPI surged. Yonhap News Agency, citing local analysts, claimed that strong annual export data released over the holiday was a key driver of the Korean stock surge. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources announced on Thursday that December exports reached $69.57 billion, marking a 13.4% year-on-year increase and setting a record high for any December. This figure significantly surpassed the consensus forecast of an 8.3% rise. However, Friday's rally was led by foreign investors while domestic retail investors sold. An economics expert said investors should take a wait-and-see approach.
It is, so to speak, an excitement effect following last year's sharp gains. If institutional or retail investors were leading the rally, we could say the momentum is still alive. But this rally has been driven by foreign investors, not individuals. That is why we need to wait and see a bit longer.
Overall, Friday's strong performance reflects optimism about South Korea's export-driven economy, with particular momentum in rising sectors tied to global demand trends such as artificial intelligence and manufacturing. The country's major tech stocks, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix, both saw a record-breaking rise on Friday, with Samsung shares closing at over 128,000 won and SK hynix shares closing at above 677,000 won. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
And 2026 is also promising an exciting calendar of events on the K-pop front with the return of big names like BTS and BLACKPINK. Our Park Gun-woo has more.
K-pop fans, get ready. Phenomenal boy band BTS has officially announced a March 20th comeback, revealed on the very first day of the new year.
여러분 새해 복 많이 받으시고요. 올해 뵙겠습니다.
The release will mark BTS's first album in nearly 4 years, following the completion of military service by all 7 members. Details on the album's concept or a potential world tour are expected later this year. Expectations are already running high as their 2022 track Run BTS from their latest album topped the iTunes chart in more than 60 countries. But BTS isn't the only act making waves. BLACKPINK's dropping a first full-length album in 4 years, following last summer's single Jump. BIGBANG is also gearing up for a comeback, marking 20 years since debuting, while EXO is set to drop a new full-length album in mid-January. As these so-called second and third generation K-pop groups return, questions remain over whether they can recapture the spotlight they once held. One expert said fan power will be the key.
The fandom has become much stronger than before, so even when groups make a comeback after a long break,
The role of their fans is clearly important. What matters most is whether artists show what their fans want to see as K-pop. More than other genres, is fan-centered. So, it's better not to be overly innovative or focus on agency profits.
He added that collaborations could help veteran groups reach a second peak, citing twice participating in the KPop Demon Hunters project as a successful example. He also noted that working with younger generation artists could help sustain and expand their musical careers. While some analysis show a global decline in K-pop album sales compared to 2024, the same expert says it's not a major concern.
Album sales aren't the only metric to look at. The decline was partly due to major groups postponing their comebacks. Globally, overall consumption is shrinking. It's not just happening in Korea. At the same time, concert sales have reached record highs, and I believe this positive trend will continue into next year.
Although groups like BTS and BLACKPINK still lead the global K-pop scene, he said it's time for that leadership to be passed on, with more active participation from rookies and artists from small to mid-sized agencies. 박건우, Arirang News.
And sales of traditional Korean goods hit a record high in 2025, driven by the global popularity of K-pop Demon Hunters. According to the Korea Heritage Agency on this Friday, the combined sales of its K-heritage souvenirs, both online and offline, amounted to around 16.1 billion won, or over $11.1 million, up 35.5% on year. The agency, which makes products featuring heritage-inspired designs, says the Netflix animation was a powerful catalyst that drove up demand. North Korea's Kim Jong-un marked the new year with a visit to his family mausoleum accompanied by his wife and daughter, whose presence there has sparked fresh speculation about a potential past succession. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his family visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun on the first day of 2026. This, according to the state-run Korean Central News Agency on Friday. What's notable was that Kim's daughter Kim Ju-ae appeared publicly for the first time at a visit to the family mausoleum. The media did not directly mention Ju-ae's attendance, but the photos released showed Kim Jong-un, his wife Lee Seol-ju, and their daughter Ju-ae standing together in the very front row, with Ju-ae positioned at the center. They were accompanied by key party and government officials, and the KCNA reported that all visitors made a firm pledge to fulfill their responsibilities and duties at the forefront of the sacred cause of realizing the eternal prosperity and development of the regime and its people's well-being. The Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the bodies of past leaders, Kim Jong-un's late father Kim Jong-il and grandfather Kim Il-sung, are enshrined, is a symbol in North Korea of the legitimacy of the regime. Since coming to power in 2012, Kim Jong-un has visited the palace on New Year's Day almost every year. But he skipped the visit in 2018, as well as in 2024 and 2025, making the visit alongside his daughter all the more surprising. One expert says this clearly is a political signal related to leadership succession.
Appearing at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun and standing even more centrally than her father clearly signals her status as a potential successor. It goes beyond a symbolic family role and represents a political message, publicly showing that she is being presented as the next leader who carries on the legacy of past rulers.
As Ju-ae is still so young, it is unlikely she will be given an official title at the 9th Party Congress, expected to take place in January. But the expert says her appearance there could itself be seen as a strong signal that she is being presented as a successor in preparation. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Also in the news, dozens of people lost their lives and over 100 were injured in a fire during the wee hours of New Year's Day at a bar in a Swiss alpine resort. Our Lee Seung-jae covers this tragic event.
At least 40 people have been killed and more than 100 others injured after a devastating fire swept through a crowded New Year's Eve bar in the Swiss alpine resort town of Crans, Montana. The blaze broke out around 1:30 a.m. Thursday at a popular bar known as La Constellation, as large crowds gathered to celebrate the start of the new year. Police say the venue was packed at the time. Investigators are still working to determine the cause of the fire. Swiss President Guy Parmelin described the incident as one of the worst tragedies the country has faced.
The circumstances that bring us together on this first day of the year in the capital of Valais are dramatic. The fire that occurred last night in a bar in Crans, Montana is one of the worst tragedies our country has ever known.
Crans, Montana is a major international ski destination, particularly busy during the holiday season, with 4 nationals among the dead and injured. A tourist from New York told AFP that he filmed bright orange flames pouring from the bar and saw people running and screaming in the darkness. Another eyewitness told Reuters that bystanders rushed to help, carrying injured people away from the fire to nearby bars and restaurants that remained open as temporary shelters, as many of the surviving victims faced cold-related shock after fleeing from intense heat into freezing air.
As mentioned before, the main, problem was the temperature shock from the heat inside to the cold outside. So one of the priorities was to get everyone warm. I'm talking the curtains of the restaurant was used.
Out of respect for the victims and their families, President Parmelin postponed his traditional New Year's address to the nation, which had been scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Authorities have also established a reception center and a dedicated helpline to support affected families. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
It's freezing today on the very first workday of the new year, and the cold is really sticking around. There's a cold wave warning around the northern parts of Gyeonggi-do, Gangwon-do, and the northern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces, and a cold wave advisory for the Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheong-do provinces, parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do, and eastern parts of Jeollabuk-do provinces. This fierce cold will last until tomorrow morning. Seoul will wake up to -8 degrees on Saturday morning. However, starting from the afternoon, temperatures will finally bounce back to the average for this time of year. Most areas will have a freezing morning tomorrow, with Chuncheon at -14 degrees and Gyeongju at -7 degrees. Highs will rise to 6 degrees in Gwangju and Daegu, 7 degrees in Busan. Temperatures around the normal levels will continue for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us.
저는 만 5살에 바이올린을 시작했는데요. 바이올린 소리를 워낙 좋아했어서 그 특유의 따뜻함과 약간 사람의 목소리 같은 목소리를 갖고 있거든요, 바이올린이. 저는 무대에 올랐을 때보다는 이제 혼자 연습할 때 더 큰 희열을 느끼는데 제가 표현하고자 하는 음악이 잘 나왔을 때 그때 가장 큰 기쁨을 느끼는 것 같아요. 그래서 저만의 색깔을 어떻게 하면 찾아갈 수 있을까 그걸 제일 많이 고민하는 것 같아요. 아무래도 연습을 할 때는 이제 생각과 고민을 많이 하는 반면에 무대에서 연주할 때는 정말 머릿속을 비우고 아무 생각도 안 하려고 하는 것 같아요. 무대에서는 자유롭게 콩쿨 무대도 저만의 독주라고 생각하는 자세를 가지려고 하고 있어요. 사실 바이올린과는 거의 제 인생의 대부분을 같이 해왔기 때문에 저를 힘들게 할 때도 많지만 제가 가장 사랑하고 아끼는 존재입니다. 작곡가가 전달하고 싶은 메시지와 또 제 자신이 관객들에게 전달하고 싶은 메시지를 모두 다 설득력 있게 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 연주자가 되고 싶습니다.
South Korea is ushered in 2026, and on Press Perspective today, we start with the President's national address to welcome the new year. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome to this very first edition of Press Perspective for the year 2026. It's Friday, January 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Min San-hee. Today, we take a look at the messages shared by global leaders as they rang in the new year. For more on the messages and celebrations, I have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and thank you for having me.
I also have writer Colin Marshall with us. Colin, it's great to have you here.
Glad to be here starting 2026.
Right, indeed. Chloe, let's start with President Lee Jae-myung's national address to usher in the new year, which took place, of course, yesterday. That is January 1st, Thursday. What was the gist of his message, and what were your takeaways?
Yeah, so in his message, he kind of made very clear parts. So first of all, he was saying that last year was a time of recovery and normalization, and that it was really onto citizen livelihood, consumer index, economical growth, and that it was the main point of 2025. He made a few interesting points as a president in this speech about what was going on in 2025 that he wants to keep developing in 2026. So a few things are advancing cutting-edge industries and business ventures. So that we've been talking about it quite a lot, especially the AI era. So developing artificial intelligence and all the ecosystem that's going with it. The second thing is he spoke about the ROC-US alliance for the economical side. So he was speaking about, obviously, about the tariff deals that have been struck with the US at the end of last year, and saying that now we also have the nuclear-powered submarines going on and other elements on the economical side with the US that have to be developed once more. And then speaking about direct democracy. So he was saying that there is like the citizens' suggestion box, then also some of the meetings, ministerial briefing meetings are being shown live for the citizens to be able to take more direct part in the democracy. And he was saying that it's something that he wants to keep going forward. And then in the new direction for the policies, he developed 5 different ways. So the first thing is he's saying we're going to go from policies that are made in Seoul towards regionally led growth. So it's already started in 2025, actually, within December, with the Ministry of Ocean and Fisheries that relocated to Busan. But the idea would be to develop that way more for a diverse type of either industries or political elements that could be moved around, so that Seoul would not be the only city gathering everything. The second thing will be going from growth centered on big corporation to giving a bit more to small enterprises and citizens. He was giving the example of the tariff deal with the US again, saying that obviously everyone had to be on board and everyone had to be helping to make it go forward. But for now, he's saying that it would probably benefit mostly big corporations, obviously the ones who are able to invest in the US. So that's one point that the government wants to take care of and be sure that everyone gets their share of the cake, actually. And the third thing will be sustainable growth, putting safety first. He gave something that I did not know. The president said that the country has the highest rate of industrial fatalities among the OECD countries, and saying that it was actually a shame that it should be made better environment for work. So that's another interesting point. Then obviously, I mean, Hallyu and the Korean wave has to be developed. So again, something that was touched upon by the government and the president himself actually here in Arirang, speaking about the fact that the Hallyu and the made with Korea content should be developed. So he spoke about this again. And then the last thing is in regard with North Korea, saying that we should go from a Korea risk of war to a stable growth supported by peace between the two countries. So he said that they want to ease the military tensions, they want to restore trust between the two Koreas. And once again, the President Xi Jinping used the expression being the pacemaker for the North Korean-US talks that could be happening this year, actually. That's at least what President Donald Trump also wants.
Right. Colin, New Year speeches by leaders are universal. It's nothing new. But if I were to ask you to perhaps underscore some unique aspects of the speeches given by Korean leaders as compared to their global counterparts, what would you choose to highlight?
Well, as it happens, I sort of binge-watched, if you like, the last 22 years of New Year's addresses by Korean presidents, so I got a sense of how they've changed, certainly. It's more entertaining than you would think, in a way. But Lee Jae-myung's first address as president, first New Year's address, is actually very slick compared to how it was in 2004 with the days of Roh Moo-hyun. And he did it with great dignity, but he was, sitting in the office in the Blue House and in one take, just speaking his piece, and usually talking about economic hardships. It's always, every year for him, he would say, I know it was hard last year, it's going to get better this year. I know it was hard last year, it's going to get better this year. And this was, of course, the time when Korea had, by most metrics, recovered from the Asian financial crisis, but in some sense, it never recovered. In some sense, that changed Korean society in a permanent way. And he, in a sense, acknowledged that. But you go on through the presidents, and they each have their own style. There's a different aesthetic. Some do it simply. Some have sort of more production. Some do it with an audience. Some hold more of a sort of press conference, like a normal press conference type setting. Yoon Suk-yeol did that. But watching Lee Jae-myung's, I thought, well, he's got multiple camera angles. This is slick. This is not just slickness, but there's a very much an awareness of branding, I would say. So versus previous Korean presidents and versus other countries' heads of state, well, he had, on the video I watched of this address, in the corner there was a logo that said, Imagine, although using his name, Lee Jae-myung, with a picture of his face. I was, okay, this is something new. I've never seen a president have a logo with their face on it, using a pun with their name in English. There was that. He used the phrase K-민주주의, or K-democracy, which is a phrase I started hearing, I think, early last year, sort of in the wake of Yoon Suk-yeol's failed push for martial law. People started talking about K-민주주의, K-democracy, the Korean style of democracy. And sometimes you wonder if the K is going a bit far, but Korea does have its own style of democracy. I think that's actually, in some ways, a legitimate use. And he mentioned, as Chloe alluded to, this is a time for focusing not just on products, exporting products, as Korea has built itself up doing, but culture as well. And that's undeniable. And I think Lee Jae-myung is making himself a part of that culture too. He is, of course, a politician, but I think he has an awareness of himself as a cultural figure that previous Korean presidents don't show when you watch their addresses. This was clearly not for internal consumption only. And so I think there's an outward orientation, or at least an awareness that you've got to make yourself legible to the world, and in a way that might distinguish yourself at a glance from your predecessors. That's what stood out to me.
Right, and speaking about the world, Chloe, do tell us a bit about the messages shared by the global leaders to their respective people on New Year's Day.
Yeah, so let's start with Donald Trump. If we talk about the New Year's Eve messages itself, was a bit of a weird one, like a very brief remarks from his club in Mar-a-Lago, where he was starting the New Year's Eve party that he usually does. So he just spoke quickly about the US economic growth, was kind of a pat in the back of himself, saying that obviously he was making the country better. Actually, if we want to speak about the speech he made and really the politics in orientation he gave, it was actually on the 17th of December when he used a pre-holiday address at the White House, where he said, he explained what happened, and he portrayed his first year back in office as a success story. So the way to do that is actually blaming his predecessor, Joe Biden, on everything that's not working and on the state of the country. And then he gave only a few elements on what's going to happen for the US. So speaking about aggressive new housing policy starting next year, saying that he will also send checks for the US troops, about over than $1,000 for each of them. But then he made a very quick speech on peacemaking, again, celebrating his victories, but nothing notable on foreign policies, which is a bit strange regarding the state of the world. And that's bring me to the next leader, that would be Volodymyr Zelensky, who spoke quickly, 20 minutes a speech, where he explained that a peace agreement to end the war with Russia is 90% ready. But it's important to note that he also said that the last 10% will, and I'm quoting him, determine the fate of peace, the fate of Ukraine, and the fate of Europe. So that would be a very heavy 10%. And it's true that we know that this is the main thing that's going on, geopolitically speaking, at the moment, with Donald Trump being involved in there. There's also the French president, Emmanuel Macron, speaking about the Ukrainian war and the treaty that's going on between Ukraine and Russia, who was saying that European states and allies will meet on the 6th of January in Paris, and that they will make concrete commitment to protect Ukraine and to ensure a just and lasting peace on the European continent. Again, that's something that we spoke about together here in 2016. 2025, possible peacemaker troops from the European armies that would be in Ukraine stationed. That's an idea that's been developed by the French president and the UK as well. So that was the main thing going on for Europe. And then if we speak about Chinese President Xi Jinping, he spoke about one of the main takeaways that we all got was about Taiwan and reunification. He said that the reunification of China and Taiwan is unstoppable, and this is really strong because it happened just a few days after the largest drills, military drills by the Chinese army right next to Taiwan, where they were simulating a blockade of the island. So that's definitely something to be checked off, and that I guess politicians and everyone will be having a look at, an eye on between Taiwan and China.
Right, and speaking about China, Chloe, President Xi Jinping's first diplomatic engagement for this new year is a summit with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping next Monday over in Beijing. Could you tell us a bit more about this upcoming event and its broader implications?
Yeah, we just got some more details today, actually, about the fact that they are going to meet on Monday. Actually, President Xi Jinping is going to be in China from Sunday to Wednesday. So there will be talk on Monday with Xi Jinping, and then he will travel to Shanghai on Tuesday, for a 2-day stay. It was explained in the news segment just before us that he's actually going to visit historic site that used to be the provisional government of the Republic of Korea under Japanese colonial rule. So that's the more historic part. But then if we come back to the discussion with Xi Jinping, it will be a summit talk. And on the agenda, what was given to us for the moment is there will be discussion about stabilizing relationship with China. That's something we know the President Xi Jinping likes to do on the pragmatic side, is developing on one side with the US and on the other side with China. There will be also practical economic cooperation and peace efforts. So that means probably discussing about North Korea on the nuclear situation in the peninsula. And it was also said that they will be speaking about supply chain investment. So that's regarding rare earth materials and anything related to AI, especially digital economy, environment and climate change, and then people-to-people exchanges, because we know that's still something that the two countries want to develop more regarding tourism, regarding the student exchanges, for example. So that's mostly what will be happening. And the foreign ministries of both countries have said today that they will make efforts to produce concrete and substantive outcome through this discussion. So the idea would be that those discussions should be bringing real deals and not only a speech at the end that will be full of good intention but without concrete elements. So we'll see.
Right. So while the South Korean president prepares to embark on his first overseas trip for this year, the Korean public here, Colin, partook in various traditional practices to welcome the new year. Among the various practices, which strikes you the most, Colin?
Well, this is a country where hiking is popular, and people hike earlier than usual on New Year's Day, often to see the sun come up to start the new year. We are here in South Korea, where we're one of the first countries to get the new year, time zone-wise. And so if you want to see the sort of earliest possible new year, you don't just hike, you go all the way to the East Coast. You see the sun come up there, and it's one of those things I've never done. Don't know if I'm up to it, but one day I would like to put myself to the test, although I hear it's fairly crowded in some of the popular spots, so you've got to get there early, and it's not exactly warm out there. But mountain hiking, if you do that, you can catch the sun coming up from, say, Achasan or Namsan here in Seoul, or mountains all over the country. People do that. And there is, of course, before New Year's Day, the traditional ringing of Boshingak, the bell downtown, 33 times to symbolize the 33 Buddhist heavens, although I noticed this year on TV it was hard to find. I was hoping to see it, but it was just music festival after music festival on TV. So I pulled it up on the internet eventually and just streamed it. But this is the year of the horse. The zodiac year is what that's coming, is the year of the horse. And there are horse sculptures all over already. And at some of these places, people go to watch the year come in. And more than that, I don't know if this is tradition or not, but you know, everybody likes to make puns involving the animal of the zodiac year. And the horse, mal, is an unusually fruitful animal for making puns because it as people may know, means it's a homophone for mal, meaning words or what you say. So, you can make a lot of puns using mal, horse, and mal, words, language, what you say, what you promise. And we're seeing them already go up in political banners, certainly in my neighborhood. And we're going to have a lot more, I think, throughout the year.
Right, indeed. And speaking about the pushing up bell ringing ceremony here in Seoul that Colin mentioned, Chloe, for the sake of our viewers overseas, could you tell us a bit more about this particular ceremony and the people, of course, chosen to ring the bell this year?
Yeah, so as Colin was saying, it's the pushing BLACKPINK pavilion. So it's in the historic center of Seoul, and there's this bell that has been ringed 33 times. That's linked to Buddhism tradition, because in Buddhism, 33 symbolized the peace and the safety. So it's interesting to see that this year there were 11 citizens that were chosen to ring the bell together. They were chosen through public nomination and recommendation, and then chosen by a committee, actually. So that's a very serious matter. And the idea is that these individuals are people who have demonstrated dedication and achievement across various sectors of society, and they have served as positive role models in their communities. So, for example, we had a bus driver who was actually, in 2 different occasions, saved someone by doing the CPR thing on people who were actually having troubles, and he saved 2 lives this year. We also had volunteer counselor who's been dedicating 25 years of his life to suicide prevention, but also in more like festive direction, and a DJ or an author as well, someone who developed color-coded pedestrian safety lanes. Also, one of the person who was in charge of the launch of the Nuri rockets. So that was also one of the big news of 2025. So that's interesting to see who were the chosen personality this year. Yeah.
Right, indeed. And Colin, for those seeking a healthy social life in the year 2026, apparently morning raves here in Korea have been emerging as a viable option. First, what are these so-called morning raves, Colin, and what makes them so popular? Also, have you been to one of them? Can we start with that first?
No, I'm afraid not. I might be aged out of this kind. Maybe not. I don't know. It seems like they accept all age groups, but in any case, I was never much of a raver, even in the heydays of evening raves. In any case, this was covered by the Washington Post recently, and so this is broken containment, broken domestic containment, and I've been getting the link from people abroad. So have you seen this? Have you seen these? Have you been to these? As you asked, and this is, yes, it's what it sounds like. People get together and dance at 9 in the morning, not terribly, terribly early, but coffee is a big part of this. And so whether it's coffee before or after, or both before and after, I think people expect that. Come for the coffee, stay for the rave, or the other way around. And if you think about it, it's not so different dancing to music early in the morning than doing aerobics or some other form of exercise. This is a little more, it's a little more of a hipper version of it, I could say. I am frustrated sometimes with this Western coverage of Korea because they don't mention where these things happen. They say it's in Seoul, okay? Narrow it down. I looked it up, and the store, the beauty brand who sponsors these is in Gangnam, unsurprisingly, I suppose. They've done them there. They've done one in Yongsan. So I think they're happening in more and more places. And it's rapidly expanding, as I understand it, this practice of morning raves. Whether it lasts or not, I'm not sure. I couldn't say. But I think that's part of the reason it's getting attention, is they're growing fast. It's not like everybody in Korea has been to one, but they're becoming more frequent. And I think with the new year here, the resolutions to exercise or to cut down drinking are both very popular in Korea. So I think this it could be 2 birds, 1 stone, as you could say in other language, isokijo. But it'll have some, I think, it will have legs, as they say. I think it has some more traction. It can get some more traction in society than it has right now.
I have to say, I'm quite interested as well.
Try it out.
Meanwhile, Chloe, as we start 2026, what do you believe is a keyword on the social front for South Korea?
I would say that it would be mending, as in reparation and repairing in the society, some divisions that we've been covering and we've been talking about all over 2025, and they're still obviously here. They cannot magically disappear. So that would be the political divide, obviously, but also I would say the generational divide that's also still here and very strong in the society. The gender gap that we also know we've seen in recent polls that actually younger male and younger female are driving apart in the society, especially the people in their 20s, even 30s as well. So that's something of concern, obviously, because if they keep going apart, they will not be able to make society together. And then also, I would say, probably not the right way to say it, but the financial gap, and that would be back to what President Lee Jae-myung was saying actually about big conglomerate, and then citizens who have to be able to work together to be able to get a share of the cake that will be working for everyone, because it's been said quite a lot that the livelihood, and it's been one of the main concern of the South Korean citizens this year, and I feel like that's still something that needs to be taken care of, and mending will be probably my main word for 2026.
Right, concerns about the cost of living, of course. So mending is your word. Colin, I'd like to extend the same question to you. What do you believe would be the key word for the year 2026?
One came to mind yesterday. Just yesterday, New Year's Day, I was out with my wife and our two very young kids at a cafe not far from where we live, and it was New Year's Day, it's a holiday, it was full of people, and looking around or listening around, I could see, of course, it's mostly Koreans, and there were some other foreigners, some other Damunhwa families, multicultural families, and you'd see, a mom from Africa or Russia with their kids, with their whole family together, and they'd be speaking Korean. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It brought to mind the word Donghwa, or assimilation, not Donghwa as in fairy tale, the other Hanja. And to make a larger point, it's not just about foreigners assimilating more than they used to, though they are, and I'm glad to see that, but about Korea itself no longer sort of playing catch up. As I say, when I was watching former President Roh Moo-hyun's New Year addresses, he would often talk about, we're catching up with the developed world, we're catching up, and we might even surpass them. It's not about that anymore. Now, Korea is not so much trying to assimilate to a league of more developed countries. In fact, other countries or people from other countries are, if they choose, and more are choosing to come here and assimilate to Korean society. So that came to mind as maybe not the biggest issue in Korea right now, but to my mind, it's a big change from when I first got here. You're seeing really a lot more assimilation to Korea, not just on the individual level, but the cultural level as well abroad among enthusiasts of Korean culture, and there are ever more of them.
All right, and on that note, we shall end today's talk. Thank you so much, Colin, for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
And Chloe, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, that ends this very first edition of Press Perspective for the year 2026. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, and see you again next Monday, same time, for our panel session on President Lee Jae-myung's state visit to neighboring China.